Hello again, everybody. I'm Chris Mooneyham, and welcome to the TCA All Sports Report. As always, brought to you by Fox 5 Atlanta, 680 The Fan, and of course, the Touchdown Club of Atlanta. Thanks for joining us for this week's All Sports Report. Everybody here's hoping you and yours has electricity, no ice, and a lot of heat pumping through the house. Boy, oh boy, for the second consecutive year, the weather is affecting the GHSA sports landscape, and for the third time in the last 4 years. And the first round was postponed a little bit, at least in some counties. We'll talk about it next in What's Happening. Yeah, not quite Snowmageddon or Snowpocalypse, not quite what we saw last year, for goodness sakes. At this time last year, I was living on a little 3/4 of a mile stretch in Sandy Springs, Roswell, right near 400, and there were 76 cars stranded on that little strip of street. Obviously, we didn't see that this year, at least not up till Friday the 20th. Who knows what we're going to get weather-wise tonight and tomorrow, but yes, some games in the first round of the state tournament were postponed, but they are now over with, and we saw 8 top 10 teams across the state be eliminated after the opening round of the state tournament. The biggest of those teams, the defending 6A boys state champion, Tift County, has been knocked out of the state tournament. So yet again, we will not have a repeat champion in the 6A classification. And if memory serves, the last time we saw a team, repeat as state champion way back in 2008 in the highest classification. That's when Norcross won their third consecutive state title. So we will have a new champion on the boys' side in 2015 in the 6A classification. Coming up next, an audience favorite, our positive athletes from the state of Georgia. We'll start this week with Kyle Ponder. He's a senior golfer from Marietta High School. Kyle has faced some extraordinary circumstances in the past few years, losing his grandfather and being diagnosed with Crohn's disease, requiring months of treatment. Despite his circumstances, Kyle still manages to give back to his community by being part of Cobb Youth Leadership and serving in Key Club and the Salvation Army. Next up is Karin Vidalevsky. Vidalevsky, a 3-sport junior athlete at the Weber School. When she's not on the court or on the field, Karin is busy giving back to her community and school, and also participating in service projects. Karin was one of several teenagers that helped to start the Daffodil Project, a worldwide project that empowers Holocaust education. And finally this week, Ashley Bates is a senior equestrian athlete from Sequoia High School. Ashley's enthusiasm and love for horseback riding spills over into her summer months, where she helps run a children's horse camp at her family's farm. She is also an active member in Beta Club, National Honor Society, and several other clubs and organizations at her school. Congratulations to our nominees this week. And remember, folks, these young people are nominated by people such as yourself. You can be a friend or a family member or really have any connection to these young people that you feel are worthy of nomination. Just visit georgia.positiveathlete.org for further details about the nomination process and the future scholarships that we will give away. Again, it's georgia.positiveathlete.org for further details. Coming up next, do you have a young man in your family and you're debating whether or not to let him play football? We'll talk about it next in Ever Wonder. A recent study revealed that 50% of Americans, according to Bloomberg, by the way, 50% of Americans say they would not let their son play football. The CDC says that 5 to 10% of all athletes in all sports in one given season could suffer from a concussion. And recently, one of the hardest scolded characters in all of National Football League history, Mike Ditka, said that if he had an 8-year-old son today, he would not let him play football because the risks are greater than the rewards. I think those are absolutely, positively perfect examples of my personal opinion on concussions in sports. You see, I think most of us agree that we can see both sides of the coin when it comes to concussions in sports. There has, of course, been a causation, a connection found between repeated head traumas and concussions in a disease known as chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or simply CTE. The majority of these cases, of course, have revolved around the National Football League, and that's understandably so. But when you really study the numbers, and take it from me, I hosted last year a town hall meeting on concussions. When you really study the numbers, you'd be surprised to find out just how many soccer players, hockey players, maybe you wouldn't be surprised by boxers, but baseball players, basketball players, that all have suffered from CTE. The numbers are actually pretty surprising. And of course, CTE is a major contributor to post-traumatic syndrome when it comes to combat veterans. Here in the state of Georgia, when it comes to our student athletes, the GHSA has, of course, taken positive steps in the right direction to lay out the rules for everyone involved: coaches, students, players, administrators, and of course, medical personnel. The prevention and treatment of concussions, that responsibility, without question, rests right on the shoulders, squarely, of everyone involved. Personally, not speaking for the TCA now, I personally believe that we do not need to take our young people out of contact sports, that is not the answer. I believe education leads to recognition, and with recognition, we can get to understanding. And when you understand anything fully, you'll know how to eliminate, or in this case, let's be honest, shrink the problem. Every week here on the Ever Wonder portion of our program, we usually use it for history, statistical notes, great historic stories and anecdotes. Brad Walsh, our resident historian at the TCA, always puts this segment together, and then I relay it to you. And I bring that up because this week he has a great paragraph that he ended this segment with that I want to relay to you, and I'm going to read it straight off of his form, and I quote: "At the TCA, we believe in football and team sports as a whole. These sports are an invaluable tool in teaching young men and women the values of teamwork, leadership, discipline, dedication, and many other life lessons that can only be learned through team sports. In particular, the game of football has given kids access to free college educations, experiences that they otherwise would never have had, lifelong relationships, and lessons of life. We believe in the game and the valuable lessons that high school football teaches our young men." Beautifully said. I couldn't agree more. Coming up next, the schedule for semifinal weekend. Perhaps the most exciting time in all of Georgia high school athletics, I must admit to you, and I know there are some GHSA folks that do not like when I say this. They tolerate the fact that I say this, maybe is the best way of putting it. But I will admit to you, and I've said this many, many times, if this is the first time you've seen the broadcast, maybe the first time you've heard it, but if you've watched us every week since last year, you know, I contend the most exciting times in Georgia high school athletics, 1 and 1A, or 1A and 1B, semifinal Friday for Georgia high school football, and semifinal weekend in Georgia high school basketball. Now, the championships are great. At the Macon Centerplex in 2 weeks, we'll see the state championships for basketball, and of course the Dome hosts the state championships in football every year, and both of those events are absolutely entertaining and extraordinary. But there is nothing like the 2 semifinal dates that I speak of. Inevitably, there is no question, we always have more drama, way more drama. So, here's the thing. I've got an assignment this week, just to let you inside the back curtain of the TCA All Sports Report. I usually wait until the very end of the weekend to cut these things. I'll do the report, I'll send it off to my producer, director extraordinaire, Chip Newsom, and he'll cut it up and make me look pretty, and then send it out to all of you on Monday of a particular week. Well, I've got an assignment this week, so I won't be able to cut the All Sports Report on Sunday the 22nd. So unfortunately, no Elite Eight preview this week. Instead, we'll look forward. And when I say forward, I mean that while I'm cutting this on Friday the 20th, Between now and the next time we see each other, we'll go all the way from 16 in each classification of the Georgia High School basketball tournament to our state championship game contenders. That's right. This next stretch here, this 8-day stretch, is for most people the most exciting time in Georgia high school athletics. Because, again, we'll go from 16 to the state championship contenders or game participants in a little over a week. So, next Friday, February 27th, is when it begins. Just with one site worth of semifinal action in Columbus, I'm very fortunate to be on the play-by-play duties for the AA state semifinals in Columbus on Friday the 27th. The rest of the semifinals are going to be on Saturday, February 28th. Here's where they'll be, and I got to tell you something, folks. If you've never had the opportunity to take in the semifinals, 4 games, 2 girls, 2 guys games, 4 games in a row at a college site, some of the best arenas in our state, if not the best arenas in our state. I got to tell you something, folks. Even if you don't have a dog in the fight, if you've got the time next Saturday, you really want to take this, or this Saturday, you really want to take this in. It is quite an event. Okay, here we go. Armstrong State on Saturday will host the 1A public boys and girls. Kennesaw State, for the 3rd consecutive year, will host the 1A private boys and girls. Columbus State, as I said, on Friday is AA, but I'll also be back at Columbus State on Saturday for the AAA boys and girls. I'll be with Justin Hanover on the play-by-play call on the NFHS network. 4A going to be in Carrollton at West Georgia. 5A is going to be at Fort Valley State, and McCamish Pavilion on the Georgia Tech campus will host the 6A boys and girls state semifinals. Again, all games will be live, streaming live at nfhsnetwork.com. I say that, and a lot of people say, oh, it's internet only, I don't want to watch that. Trust me, you want to see it. The quality is great. The NFHS network, I've worked with Play On Sports for many, many years. They have HD internet type broadcasts. So nfhsnetwork.com, and of course you can go to ghsa.net for further details. Coming up next in the My Take portion of our program, let's see, how do I tease it? Ineligibility for all freshmen. It was learned this week that the Big Ten Conference is seriously, even if preliminarily, exploring the option of classifying freshmen for college basketball and football as ineligible for play. In that, they want their freshmen to spend a year growing accustomed to the college lifestyle. It was revealed this past week that the conference is circulating a document titled A Year of Readiness to gauge interest from other commissioners, administrators, coaches, and players. Freshmen, ineligible for the first year of play. In a statement to ESPN.com, the league says, and I'm quoting now, it is gauging interest from its members about a national discussion regarding a year of readiness for student athletes. So, of course, the story breaks and CBSSports.com starts to tap other commissioners from around the major power conferences across the country. They find Pac-12 Commissioner Larry Scott, and he says, and I quote, there has been discussion about freshman ineligibility with several commissioners, and that there will be more serious conversations about it in the coming months and years. Now, when that, end quote, and when that came out, that blew a lot of people's minds as well. Wait a minute, they've all been talking about this already. How long's this been going on? Months and years? Holy smokes. Then, Big 12 Commissioner Bob Bowlesby is interviewed by CBSSports.com, and he corroborates the fact that they've all been talking about this for months already. And he says, and again I'm quoting, there's growing interest in debating the possibility. 35 young men. That's the number of young gentlemen who've played 1 year of college basketball in the last 5 years, and then, after their freshman year, made the leap to the NBA, an average of 7 over the last 5 years. 35 young men, including 9 just last year. 9 freshmen last year. And of course, you out there in viewerland can probably name 2 or 3 right off the top of your head that you know are going to do the same thing again this year. We've all talked about the quality of college basketball. I watched Duke and North Carolina just last week, and I'm going to tell you something, folks. I don't know these kids like I used to. So many people have gotten away from college basketball because the kids don't stay as long as they used to. We don't have the opportunity to get to know a guy for 4 years. So inherently, I believe that has brought down the quality, the profile of college basketball. And the ratings, well, the ratings absolutely show it. How many people do you know that say, you know what, I just don't pay attention to college basketball as much as I used to. When it gets to championship week, that's when I'll start watching. How many guys do you know that have worse records now in their prediction pools of the NCAA tournament brackets than they used to? This guy. I used to be 75%, 78, 80% every year. Now I'm more like a 65 to 70% guy because we just don't know the kids like we used to. It is, of course, within the right of the conference to say if you want to come play college basketball or football inside of our conference for one of our member schools, you will have to sit out a year. And it is, of course, within the right of the player to say, well, then I just won't come there. I want to play 1 year of college basketball and then make the jump to the NBA. Somewhere in the middle of all these discussions between the labor unions or the attorneys and whomever else will be in the discussions will be big business. The NCAA, the conferences, lawyers, and somewhere in there, hopefully, someone will think about the Constitution of the United States of America. Until next week, I'm Chris Mooneyham for the TCA All Sports Report.